The I-70 unaliver is an unidentified American serial unaliver who is known to have unalived 6 store clerks in the Midwest in the spring of 1992. His nickname derives from the fact that several of the stores in which his victims worked were located a few miles off of Interstate 70. His victims were usually young, petite, brunette women. One of the victims was a man, but it is believed that the unaliver may have expected a woman in the store due to the store having a woman's name and the employee having long hair. All of the stores attacked were specialty stores and were usually only robbed of small amounts of cash. He is also suspected of pew-pewing 3 more store clerks in Texas during 1993 and 1994, one of whom survived, as well as a 2001 unaliving of a store clerk in Terre Haute, Indiana. Despite the case being featured on Unsolved Mysteries, America's Most Wanted, Dark Minds and People magazine investigates, the unaliver is yet to be identified and investigators have not publicly identified any suspects. The unaliving spree began on April 8, 1992, with the unaliving of 26-year-old Payless shoe source manager Robin Fuldauer in Indianapolis. She was alone in the store when she was unalived, having been unalived sometime around 1:30 p.m. Her body was discovered in a storage room in the back of the store around 3 p.m. Less than $100 had been stolen from the cash register. The next 2 unalivings occurred on April 11th at the La Bride d'Elegance bridal shop in Wichita. The victims were Patricia Smith, 23, and the store's owner, 32-year-old Patricia Maggers. As this was the only case involving multiple victims, investigators believe the unaliver was under the impression that there was only one woman in the store. The women had stayed past the normal closing time of 6 p.m. to allow a male customer to pick up a cummerbund. Sometime after 6 p.m., the women allowed the unaliver into the store, thinking he was the customer they were waiting for. After the women were unalived, the actual customer arrived to pick up the cummerbund and came face to face with the I-70 unaliver. The customer noticed that the unaliver had a pew-pew and the unaliver asked the customer to come with him to the back of the store. The customer refused, after which the unaliver told him to leave the scene. Had the customer cooperated with the unaliver, he almost certainly would have been unalived as well. The customer was so frightened that he did not report the incident until more than an hour had passed. He later provided details for a composite sketch of the unaliver, describing the unaliver as a slender white man with reddish hair armed with an Uzi-style pew-pew. On April 27th, Michael McCown, 40, was unalived in his mother Sylvia's ceramic store in Terre Haute, Indiana around 4 p.m. McCown's wallet and less than $50 were stolen from the store. No witnesses reported seeing the unaliver beforehand. McCown was the only man unalived during the spree. It is believed by investigators that the I-70 unaliver chose the store because the store's solo woman's name, Sylvia Ceramics, seemed to make it a good target, because McCown was reported to wear his hair in a ponytail and was pewed from behind while he was kneeling to stock shelves. He may have been mistaken for a woman. On May 3, 24-year-old Nancy Kitzmiller was unalived while working alone at Boot Village, a footwear shop in St. Charles, Missouri. She opened up the shop at noon and was found unalived by customers at 2:30 p.m. She had been pewed in the back of the head. She was supposed to be off that day, however. She agreed to come in so that a co-worker could have the day off. Some money was taken from the cash register. Although no one heard the pew, a witness did see her with her final customer just minutes before her death, and this sighting helped police to create a composite drawing. The final confirmed unaliving occurred on May 7th in Raydown, Missouri. The victim was 37-year-old Sarah Blessing, who was working in her gift shop, store of many colors. The unaliving occurred during the day, and the owner of the video store next to Blessing's shop saw the unaliver enter the shop, heard a pop, and then saw him leave. He discovered Blessing's body after checking to see what had occurred in the store. A clerk at a nearby grocery store also saw the suspect. He was climbing a hill towards I-70. Investigators believe the I-70 unaliver may be responsible for 2 unalivings in 1993 and an attempted unaliving in 1994, all of which occurred in Texas. The 2 victims were 51-year-old Marion Glasscock, who was unalived on September 25, 1993, in Fort Worth at the Emporium Antique Store, and 22-year-old Amy Vess, who was pewed to death in a dance apparel store in Arlington on November 1st. The surviving victim was Vicki Webb, 35, who was pewed on January 15, 1994, in Houston at the Alternatives gift shop. She briefly talked to the person before he pewed her in the back of the head. The weapon did not penetrate into Webb's head due to a large vertebra being hit. The person attempted again, but his weapon misfired, and he left, presuming Webb to be dead. The modus operandi of the Texas unaliver was very similar to the I-70 unaliver, and he used the same type and caliber weapon, the same caliber as the I-70 unaliver. A ballistics test determined that the weapon used in the Texas unalivings was not the same as the one used in the I-70 unalivings, however, so investigators have not been able to confirm that the I-70 unaliver was responsible for the pewings in Texas. The unalivings were conclusively linked after a St. Charles detective suspected a connection. All of the unalivings were committed with the same caliber weapon, and the victims were usually petite, young women with long dark hair. Aside from the Wichita unalivings, all the victims were alone. All were pewed in the back of the head. None of the scenes had any signs of inappropriate assault, and while all stores were robbed, robbery appeared to be a secondary motive, as all the stores were small specialty businesses, which did not have much money. The unalivings took place at slow times of day when the stores were deserted, such as after lunch or around closing time. Several of them were in strip malls near I-70. Based on witness testimonies, police strongly believe the unaliving weapon may have been an Intertech Scorpion or an Irma work. They have not, however, been able to rule out any other models. The casings of the cartridges showed traces of Jeweler's Rouge. Midwest authorities linked the unaliver to the unalivings in Texas in 1994, but Texas authorities were not convinced of a connection as different weapons were used in each spree. Based on witness descriptions, investigators were able to produce composite sketches of the unaliver and a physical description of the suspect. The I-70 unaliver was described as being a white man in his 20s or 30s, 5 feet 7 inches to 5 feet 9 inches tall, thin and having lazy eyelids and sandy blonde or reddish hair in 1992. In 2021, the St. Charles Police Department published age-progressed versions of the original composite sketch to show what the unaliver may look like today. Investigators believe the suspect is between 52 and 70 years old if he is still alive. Police have not publicly identified any suspects and the case has been classified as a cold case. Thank you for watching. For more true crime stories, follow my co-host Child Case Podcast with Sylvia Pradia, where she covers child abuse cases.